Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Secret Invasion has come to a close. Another Marvel Studios Disney Plus series has come and gone. Now, of course, usually I would cover like every episode of the show. But with Secret Invasion, I only did the first episode and now obviously the finale, which, my bad. I've just been really busy these last couple weeks after not being able to do the second episode and the third episode. I was like, well, what's the point now? But now we're here to talk about the finale. Just a quick recap of my overall thoughts on the previous episodes. I think it's been a weird show because, like, looking back, it's a show that's been good, but in between episodes, I've had no real excitement or hype for each episode. Like, I watch it and I'm like, oh, this is good. But outside of that, I had no feelings towards it because it just struggles to be what it could be. Like, there was the potential for so much more with this show. Especially with these last couple episodes being only like half an hour long. It's not great. I mean, I love the first episode when it was like an hour long. That was perfect. But now you get these shorter episodes. And especially, probably one of the big, I guess you could say, reveals of the show was that Rhodey was a Skrull. But I mean, that was like the most predictable thing ever. Like in the comics, when they did Secret Invasion, when a big Avenger was revealed to be a Skrull, that was a big deal. Here, when he's the only Avenger that's on the show, it's kind of obvious. But, obviously, if we had other bigger characters in here, then it would be a more expensive show. It would probably even be a movie at that point, which, probably would have been preferable, but whatever. So here we have the finale, which, again, is short. It's only about half an hour long. But I did actually enjoy it. It was a very simple episode that basically had, like, for the most part, kind of just, like, two scenes going on here, wrapping things up. And again, while it is simple and while it is short, I think it worked. It was kind of cool, especially the fight scene we have at the end. Like, the final battle is actually really dope. But first, let's talk about Rhodey. So yeah, we got to wrap up the whole Rhodey as a Skrull thing. So we have him taking care of the president, and then Nick Fury and Sonya Falsworth, they come in, and they expose him to the president. And, the president is back and forth like, oh, who do I trust? Who to believe? And then Nick Fury ends up shooting Rhodey. He turns into a Skrull. Boom, there we go. That's all taken care of there. But the other storyline, the more interesting storyline to me, is we have Nick Fury, who actually is Gaia in disguise, going out and confronting Gravik for this final showdown. And I have to say, Kingsley Ben-Adir's performance in this scene was really cool, especially when he had the almost Heath Ledger Joker moment with the look at me. Like, I really loved that. Like, Kingsley Ben-Adir, great performance in this episode. I haven't been loving his performance throughout the show. It's felt kind of basic, but in this episode, it really came through. Speaking of Kingsley Ben-Adir, he was recently in the Barbie movie. He was great there as well. Also, check out my review for Barbie on my other channel, The Movie Life. But yeah, so it was a nice little scene here. And we get a little bit of explanation, some backstory here. Like, for example, this human form that Gravik has taken on is the face of the first human that he killed. And that's a human that he killed under the order of Nick Fury. And I do enjoy these small moments where he's talking about how, like, he used to look up to Nick Fury as a hero. And now, obviously, things have changed. But then Fury is just like, all right, here's the harvest DNA. Take it, just get off my planet, go do whatever you want, but just don't do it here. So Gravik is like, oh, you stupid idiot, you've got to have a backup plan here. So then he sticks the DNA in the thing, gives himself superpowers, becomes even more of a super Skrull. And this was a great moment right here, this whole fight scene, because I was so confused at first, because then I'm like, wait a second, is Nick Fury getting superpowers? And then when he got the Hulk armor, I was like, what is going on here? But then, of course, we find out that it is Gaia in disguise as Nick Fury. And we get this really, really awesome fight scene here between two different Super Skrulls. And it's really cool, because they're working with like 23 different DNA samples from the final battle of Avengers Endgame. And there's just some really cool moments in here. Like, obviously you have the Hulk arm, you have Drax's arm in here. I did really love the use of Korg's arm. which I think could possibly be a reference and kind of homage to the comics accurate Super Skrull, like the Fantastic Four Super Skrull, because of course, part of the Fantastic Four Super Skrull is the arm of the Thing, and there's the same arm right here, rock arm, just, if it was a different color, then it'd be like, oh, that's the Thing. I think it was interesting having things like Ghost in there. That was really cool. She wasn't at the final battle, at least as far as we're aware, but that was cool having her in there. Mantis, I really enjoyed that. Groot, obviously, the Thanos arm, the Frost Beast with the ice sword, that was really cool. And of course, going binary mode with the Captain Marvel powers was really, really awesome. And of course, it ends with Gravik, of course, being defeated. He gets killed, blasted through the chest with Captain Marvel's powers by Gaia. And there we go. The day is saved. But not so much, because then, sure, we end off things there, and then Gaia actually ends up going to work with Sonya Fallsworth, so that's cool. I'm excited to see when or if we're going to see those characters pop up again in the future of the MCU. That would be pretty cool to see. But now the President, he basically, launches this attack against all superpowered beings on Earth. He does this, televised broadcast exposing the Skrulls, and on top of that, basically saying that, he's trying to get this bill passed to exterminate and execute every single being from a different world that is living on Earth. Which, this is pretty stupid, because, obviously he is meaning it just to be targeted towards the Skrulls, but it's a pretty broad generalization to just say something like that, because something like that also would include, Thor and the Asgardians, the Guardians of the Galaxy, except Peter Quill, literally most of our superheroes. That's not great. But what I do think this is setting up is a couple things going forward. One of which I think is specifically the Thunderbolts, because this is something that very, very similar happened in the comics. After Secret Invasion, there was a lot of distrust in the public with superpowers and superheroes and the Avengers. So then that is when Norman Osborn came in and he formed the Dark Avengers. And we know that the MCU's version of the Thunderbolts is going to be a mix of the Dark Avengers and the Thunderbolts. So that, I think, is something that is being set up right here. So that's really cool. But also the X-Men, because this has always been a huge part of the X-Men and mutants in the comics, is that mutants are, they're kind of a reflection of racism in real life. That divide between they're different, we don't like them, and just humans are scared of them and all this stuff. And so this is clearly what's being set up there. Just it's horrifying seeing that at the end of this episode where random people are getting executed, whether they're actually Skrulls or not. And some of those Skrulls are good Skrulls too. And now that's going to start happening more frequently here throughout the MCU. And when we get into mutants, it's going to get even worse. But this is really exciting because, obviously that is a huge setup for X-Men and mutants. So I'm really excited to see how that plays out when we do eventually get them. Obviously, we know we're getting some big mutant X-Men stuff next year with Deadpool 3. But when we get the actual 616 MCU originated X-Men, that's something I'm really looking forward to. And then finally, we end off with a little bit of setup for the Marvels, kind of our ending for Nick Fury. He and his wife, they get back together, and they go back up to Saber. Nick Fury mentions something about the Kree being open to a peace treaty with the Skrulls. So that obviously is setting up something for the Marvels, because we know Nick Fury is going to be in that movie, which is coming out this November, unless it gets delayed again, which it's rumored it might be. So we'll see on that. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed this finale. I think it was a nice ending. I know a lot of people say it felt a little lackluster. And yes, it was a very simple episode that, not a whole lot happened. But what did happen, I think it worked. It wrapped things up nicely. I just do think that we need to stop doing this whole 6-episode story thing for these MC Disney Plus shows, especially if you're going to do half-hour episodes. Extend this thing a bit, really dive into these characters and not just rush through everything, really let things marinate a bit, but whatever. So We, of course, are getting our next MC Disney Plus series with Loki this October, and then also Echo in November. So that's what we have to look forward to next. Obviously, we have the Marvels in November as well. That'll be a movie. I guess anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think about Secret Invasion overall as a series? Again, I liked it for the most part, but it's definitely not anywhere towards the top of my ranking. I wish we could go back to the good old days when we first started getting these MC Disney Plus shows. Like, the good ones. You know, WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki. Like, go back to the good old days. But no, we're stuck here. I still think the best MC Disney Plus show from the past 2 years is Moon Knight. Ms. Marvel is great as well, for the most part. But just lately, like Secret Invasion, She-Hulk, they just haven't been really doing it. So, anyways, guys, of course, hit the subscribe button, all that stuff. Thanks so much for watching. Please drop it if you enjoyed this video. And hit the subscribe button so I can keep up to date on everything that goes on in the Marvel life.